All right, we are back on Play It Forward with filmmaker Camille Corbett, writer, director. The film we're going to be talking about today is The Island. Camille, thank you for the wave. I actually forgot to mention that we like those because they cut well on the outro. Camille, would you like to introduce yourself prior to starting?
Hi, my name is Camille Corbett. I'm writer and director of The Island.
Awesome. And The Island is a short film. Is it a pilot to get a bigger series landed? Is it just a self-contained short?
Okay, so it's a proof of concept for my feature basically. So I wrote a feature and The Island is a few scenes pulled out and then I added a few additional scenes so there'd be like a solid beginning, middle, and end. But yeah,
I see.
it's basically the first kill in my horror comedy.
Okay, all right. That helps explain it because, I was kind of, in terms of the narrative structure, trying to understand it a little better. But now that if you're saying that it's pieces that are structured together from a larger work, that makes
It's just a
sense.
few scenes, yeah.
Well,
They are sequenced together though.
it looks like a super ambitious project. I mean, you've got a huge cast. It looks like a cast of great characters in there, a lot of fun actors and characters. The first question about the island is where did you get the inspiration to write this, even before the very idea came to you as a thought?
So basically my family was supposed to go to the Dominican Republic. But we found out they were poisoning tourists. They were putting antifreeze in their drinks. And I knew that they would have definitely gotten murdered if we had went there because I am Jamaican, but I'm adopted by an American family and they are like very like hard rock cafe sort of tourists, you know? They always expect the American thing to be there wherever they are at. And I definitely feel like they would have gotten us murdered, which is what inspired the island.
That's insane. What I did not, I don't follow the news. I'm not like into media at all, contrary to what I do for work. What happened? They were putting antifreeze in
Yeah,
tourist. What's that all
yeah.
about?
I think that it was just like, general like hatred of tourists. I think they caught the people, but it was just like, yeah, we just wanted to get them basically.
That's
And it's
so
not
weird.
fair. I feel it. I'm Caribbean. I understand you have to serve these ungrateful people who think that they are helping you by like giving you money for like their tourist destination, but in reality, they're just encroaching on your land and making you only good for one thing. So I really wanted to write from that perspective as someone from the Caribbean who could see both sides.
Cool. Interesting. So that gets us into the second question, and really, the seeing of the both sides of this like complicated issue. And as we were talking about, certainly race and oppression and using one person for another person, and what all this just this messiness of human beings that can happen when people try to use one another to their advantage. That's certainly there in the island, and we have a black tourist family coming into a black Caribbean island, and there's this animosity between one another, and then there is this killer and this predator preying on what appears to be, now you can help me out here, but what appears to be a certain type of victim or a certain type of prey. And the prey itself seems to be one that has vice, is corrupt, and it preys on the corrupt. Now, fill me in. Did I pick that up correctly? Where are the gaps and the message and theme? Let's explore that together.
No one is perfect, so everyone has like flaws or whatever, right? So it's like sort of like Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, what's gonna get you killed? And that's very much like the theme of the island feature. And so obviously the entire family you see in the short, by the end of the feature, they're all gone aside from Zora, the final girl, and Darius, the little boy. And so, yeah, it's sort of like Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, in which all of their vices get them killed eventually.
Okay.
And kind of like a gag that I have in the feature is that there's one couple that like have sex the entire time. And so they're safe. And then once they venture out, then they get murdered. So it's like, yes, everyone's vices like aid in their destruction, but
Mm,
sometimes their vices also help them.
until they don't.
Yeah.
Um, cool. Wow. All right. So, reflecting, my job in watching these films is to really and analyze them from a perspective of what is the message, what is the content, what is this theme, and I look at the narrative arc and I look at the storyline, the subtext, and the theme, and then in yours we've got these themes of police incompetence, which is definitely something going on in America. We have this greater theme of mistrust between these two, you know, natives and tourists, and then there's some element of helplessness that's going on in the character that is the daughter of the first victim that was killed, and nobody seeming to help her. So I guess, with that kind of mixed, and I know you've got it more thought out into a feature, what are the themes that you feel like you're exploring and the message that you're trying to work out for yourself?
One of my main themes, which is like slightly controversial, is that I think that there is a whiteness in being African American.
Huh,
Um, so when I talk about
sure.
whiteness, I talk about, like the idea of there being like a hierarchy, of like there being some form of like superiority through race, through ethnicity. And I feel like being African American, I'm treated different than people that are from actual Africa in the countries that I've been to. I've been to a lot of different countries. And even when I was in the UK, Black people would approach me and be like, "You were so lucky that you're African American. You have so many people in your culture to look up to that people respect: Obama, Oprah, Beyonce, all of these sorts of
Hmm.
people. What's the equivalent in the UK?" And at the time I was studying there, they had like Idris Elba and like Gugu, and I couldn't name another,
Who's
really.
that? Who are those
Um,
people?
exactly.
Okay.
The fact that you don't know them as an American is very like disturbing. So
Well,
the
again,
fact
I don't watch media, so
I mean, you do watch media. This is a film
I
podcast.
make media.
And
Yes.
they're very famous
Yeah.
actors, but that is just demonstrating the
Yeah.
lack of power that they have in the UK in comparison to the Black people in America. And so I literally think that there is a whiteness to being African American that is not spoken about, but is very prevalent. And I think that it's really interesting because, obviously as an African American, I do feel oppressed as well. Um, like police brutality. There's like a plethora of reasons to feel oppressed as a Black woman. But definitely when I go abroad, I do feel a privilege at the same time. And so I sort of wanted to talk about the phenomenon in the island. And that's sort of what you see here, where it's like this sort of like White Lotus effect with these African American tourists. But at a certain point, even though they are Black, and I feel like my family feels the same way, like because someone else is Black, they feel like a sort of a kinship to them, and that they're the same and like they're equals. But I'm like, do they feel the same way towards you? Or do they view you the same as these white tourists, and they just want to take advantage of you, and it doesn't matter who it is? And not even necessarily take advantage, but do they even view you different as the white tourist once they find out that you're African American? And generally, no. And so I just wanted to talk about that in the island.
Mm. Well, what do you think and what do you see and have you gotten there in your writing and your writing of this feature as what is the antidote? What is the antidote to people hurting one another and seeing one another as separate?
I don't think that is an antidote. That is sort of what I'm trying to talk about in the island, that no matter how similar you may think you are, you can also be different, and there will always be differences. Like you talk about how like people are anti-Semitic previously in our prior conversation to this podcast. And I, think as a Black person, I just see two white people fighting. Like I'm just like, I don't get anti-Semitism because it's like two white people pointing out differences. And I'm like, y'all look the same. In the island, it's the same thing. It's like two Black people pointing out differences that we're just like, these are two Black people, what are the differences? But people will always find the differences,
Well, I think
and
you just kind of
parts of
hit it.
the nature of it.
Well, I
Yeah.
think you just kind of hit upon it. I mean, if we take a step back, we're all just people. We all look like people. So why bother with these differences? And, I think some people will always find differences and some people will always try to, you know, see those differences as just part of whatever. You got a mole, I don't. You got, this, I don't. I mean, it's just doesn't have to be something that people use to oppress or hurt or see a difference, to be separate. You can still be close as human beings, irrespective, don't you think?
But yeah, obviously the island is like a horror film and they're doing human sacrifices. So they sort of thrive off the differences of each other? So it's sort of not like trying to find a solution in this film. It's
Got it.
more so, just showing like how farcical differences can be and how everyone will look for one.
Right. Well,
It's
that's
just our nature. It's just human nature to be like, oh, well, this person isn't exactly like me. Like, I don't know how many times, like, as a Black person, like, there'll be like this figure and they'll be like, this is your representation. And then someone will be like, well, they're like a shade too light, or they're not fat enough, or they're not, anything enough, or they're not my exact ethnicity. So this is not right. And at a certain point differences I don't think are farcical, and that's what I want to show in the island.
yeah, yeah.
And no, that nothing is perfect. You're never going to find that perfect like reflection of yourself ever. And I know I talk too much about the feature, but
No, not at all.
feature is basically what happens is Zora, the main character, she comes out to her family, and she like
Comes
then
out
as gay.
okay,
She's a lesbian.
okay.
So she comes out to her family. None of them accept her. So immediately there's a divide. They already see the difference there. And then they start dying one by one, and she sort of starts to feel responsible. She's like, I came out to my family and now they're starting to die. And it's like, this sort of like insane situation, but it's like not her fault. And it's like they're the first people to cause the differences to be shown. Her family are constantly pushing against the differences, whether it be the natives culture. They'll like say snide remarks throughout the film. You sort of heard that. When it comes to her sexuality, they will say snide remarks towards that. And it's like at a certain point we have to realize, as Americans, as agents of whiteness, that we are causing these differences sometimes, to be like highlighted.
Well, I would put it as agents of separation or agents of, identity.
I'm just
Um,
using the technical term that they use
oh,
in
is that
race
right? Uh,
gender studies.
okay, there's a thing. Okay, cool. I didn't realize
Yeah.
that. What I'm hearing is really interesting in the context that like I'm live my life. And part of that context is from this book called Bhagavad Gita. And in the Gita, it's a very famous Indian text.
I read
You read it. Okay, so Arjuna has to fight the enemy, and the enemy are on the other side of the battlefield are his parents, are his teachers, are his kin. And that is a metaphor for like being able to think independently for yourself, and go beyond all those forms that you've been taught. And any form can be oppressive. I mean, it's so limited, it's so finite, and as human beings, we're infinite. I believe that. And so, how do we blow up these arbitrary distinctions and live in harmony And I think, you're getting to that too by saying, hey, this is such a farce. It's such a farce. All
I
these,
don't think there's a solution though.
hey, that's cool. That's cool. That's cool, but we can make progress. We can make progress, and people don't have to be in as much pain, and we can do our best to end suffering, or try to alleviate a little bit, move the dial.
I think that the closest that we could get to a solution is just to understanding that people might have a different perspective than us and that nothing is right or wrong necessarily, which again just makes everything seem like a farce. So why even try and explain it?
I love it. I love it. Camille Corbett, how have you been personally changed since making this short
um,
and starting the project for the feature?
I don't know. I feel like I'm more sure of my voice as a filmmaker, 100%. Because I was able to get independent financing for this project. I'm a TV writer, so I'm used to like a lot of no's, like sending in like pilots or whatever to like production company studios and doing lots of pitches and stuff. And like obviously like the projects I put up are like millions of dollars, so I get the no. It's a lot. But to like be able to like get thousands of dollars to make this project through like a company that I admire, Outback Presents, and then to get a great cast, create something just straight based off of my like something I wrote, and then like for people to actually agree with my vision for Panavision, to agree to like let me use their cameras um for through their grant process was amazing. Just like all these people signing off. People don't realize how many people it takes to sign off to make like a strong film.
Oh yeah.
And so at every level, like even like the actors, like being able to get this incredible cast and them all be passionate about the script. My DP was amazing and she really resonated with it. She's from
Cinematography is awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, she's an incredible.
Lighting's really nice.
Yeah, my like the G&E team was amazing. Kay was the head of that. She's really talented. They come from the commercial world, so they're used to doing like a little with dealing with a little for a lot. And it was really great to like create something really beautiful and cinematic with people that are used to being on set all of the time, because I'm used to like writing and directing. I mean, I'm writing all of the time, not directing all of the time. I wish directing all of the time. So it was nice for to be with people at my level that were like my age, and we all were able to create something that we were all proud of together. But I feel like the way that it's changed me is that now I know that I'm worth the millions of dollars I asked for in studio from studios. Before I was like unsure. I was like after every pitch, I'd be like, oh, I understand. Like millions of dollars is a lot. Now I'm like, you give me my 5 to 10 to make the island.
Don't
I deserve.
stop at millions. Keep going. Go billion.
I mean,
Priceless.
I don't think I want to make the shot list for $1 billion film.
Right.
That
Right.
would be hell.
Right.
Like, no, thank you. But I want a cool 5-10 to make the island feature for sure, because
All
I know
right.
people love it.
All right. Camille Corbett, thank you very much. It was a pleasure to meet you. Writer, director. The short film was The Island, and the feature is coming soon. You'll keep us posted.
Yeah, fingers crossed.
All right. All right. All the best. Don't go anywhere, Camille. Everybody on Play It Forward. Peace. Till next time. We'll see you. Thank you for that wave.